Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships and the new update. 15.1 here brings the Lunar New Year's event for 2026. We're going to go over this update and its special resources, tell you everything you need to know, break things down, as this is a bit of a complicated looking event on the surface. Took me a while to go through it, but now I've got the information for you. We're going to start things off with these patch notes and get into the Lunar New Year 2026. You do get a login bonus, so much like over Christmas, just by logging in, you get a completely free gift here. You'll find that over in the Update Navigator tab here, a very handy new feature that they've had over the last few months. I really do enjoy having this here. Your gift will be right here. And some criticism wargaming right off the start. This reminds me exactly of the Christmas UI, where you could get the ship completely for free. Remember that? They were offering you a tech tree ship completely for free. Doesn't it look like you're getting one of these ships for free? The answer is no, it's a permanent camo. And I know it says it here. I understand, right? Just got to read the UI and it will let you know it's only a camo. But given that the past couple of times, 2024 Christmas and 2025 Christmas, where we've seen this UI before, you had a ship as the reward, I think it's reasonable to think that a few people will click on the ship thinking they're actually getting that ship, not just a camo. Wargaming, I think it'd be great if you could clear that up just a little bit more. Notably, you'll also get a few more gifts here, a couple more perma camos, but crucially, you'll get a Defenders of Order and an Adherents of Chaos container. This is to do with the new ships that are coming this update, the Yimeng, the Messina, as well as that new Pan-American carrier, which I am not going to pronounce here. That's the only way to get it, is out of these containers. And then there's a nested container inside there that is going to be very unlikely to drop you these new ships. The only way to get them is by gambling. And these are the only, as far as I can tell, these are the only free containers. There is no other free way to gain these containers. It is just purely heavily monetized. If you're curious about a rant on those gambling containers, I will link the video in the description. Did that on Monday this week. Don't want to get into that too much here, but I speculated that maybe there would be a few ways to get free crates throughout this event, and now I see there are only two. As a reminder, with these containers, it's very unlikely. So you're going to have to get most of these ships to actually start guaranteeing the drop of Nian's treasure after 50 drops. Yes, the guaranteed, the pity timer. I didn't know what this was beforehand. I don't know why Wargaming can't tell me this. Clearly, they've already decided on what the pity timer was. For whatever reason, they couldn't tell me beforehand. Now we know 50 containers to actually guarantee a ship. That is not this Nian's treasure box. Interesting. And this is the only spot you can find the new ships. Here you can find the drop rates on this premium container within a container, and it is only 8%. I did see that this 8% ship drop rate was also on a pity timer of 20 crates, I believe. So that helps out a little bit, but not by much. It's very unlikely you're going to get one of these new ships, unfortunately. If you missed out on the dockyards, again, very unlikely. I think the average drop rate of one of these ships, one of these 6, is a 1 in 125 of the initial crates, by the way. For every 125 of these crates, on average, you're going to get a drop of one of these new ships. As a reminder, that's on average, so you could get unlucky. And then it's a 1 in 6. This quickly balloons the cost. 100 of these containers cost you $160 US, by the way. And you're just gambling on a chance of getting these ships. I really dislike this wargaming. I hate it when you add these things, and I gotta call it out again. I'm not gonna go in a full rant, but we can't be having this. This is not okay. Back to our patch notes, we find there's a festive calendar, much like Christmas advent calendar. I don't expect there to be anything particularly good in here, but it's your daily login bonus, right? Nian's Paradox. Now this is the major event for free-to-play players. Yes, you can unlock premium and special ships for free. This event will run until the release of update 15.3, which is nice. You got a bit of time here to grind out these new tokens. You're going to find this up in the top left corner here, the Nian Paradox. Click on this, and you'll be given the option to select one side, Order or Chaos. The ability to swap between them is free the first time, but then every time after that, you're going to have to spend some coal. Mostly, you won't need to swap because, as we'll soon find out, the cost of some of these ships in grinding time and tokens is so much that you should probably just pick the ship that you want, the one track you think you can finish, and then stay there. So we'll click in on the Defenders of Order here, and we'll realize that there are sub-options within the Defenders of Order. Crucially, once you've selected the order, you can swap between these. This is not required to spend coal to swap between these. These are all on the same side. It's only if you want to swap over to Chaos. Then you will have to spend some coal. That's only after you join Coalition. This is a different set of ships available for those exact same tokens. We can see their rewards individually here, what you can all get. Notably, it is reskins of premium ships. So this is not anything new that we haven't seen before in the game. This is just purely reskins of different ships. And honestly, these could have just been camos for these existing ships already, but they went a different route, which I'm not a huge fan of, to be honest with you. But there are a ton of different options here, notably Lauria. If you don't have the steel, or you just don't want to spend the steel on Lauria, you can get it for free, technically. It's very challenging to get enough tokens for Lauria, but technically you could earn this thing completely for free without spending any steel. We have a few more ships like the Schlieffen clone here too, and then if we go to the Chaos side, you're gonna have like a Petro clone, Zetan clone, that kind of thing. As well as some bundles that maybe I wouldn't recommend so much. Delaware, Neptune, maybe not so much. I do think that the Navarin is a pretty fun brawler at tier 9. Here we also get a Z52 clone. But I do think for the most part, you should wait and then only select the ship that you want to get at the end of this event. Once you know you have enough tokens to get yourself all the way to the final reward. Because this event is very expensive, at least in the time required to grind out these tokens. Notably, you get 40,000, up to 40,000 of these tokens from combat missions. Also, the leaderboard's last update is how you got up to 4,000 more. Here you get 1,500 as a gift just by logging on, and then there's 200 in free daily random bundles in the armory. I think it's reasonable that people are going to get 20 to 25,000 of these tokens, as we'll go over those missions in a little bit. Notice, though, that to get some of these ships, if you want all of these Italian premium ships, 39,000 total. That's a lot. If you want some of the mid-tier ones here, Tiger 59, Duke of York, you're going to spend 18,500 of these tokens. If you want that Lauria clone, that's going to cost you a total of 42,000 tokens, which is just barely doable for free if you got everything out of here. Very, very expensive. We also could get a premium Schlieffen. You could get a premium Z52, a Navarin clone, Neptune, Delaware, Grom, Petro, Zetan. I think you should wait because there's a big difference in the cost here. So as soon as you start in on one of these tracks, you can't get those points back. It's the same points used for all of them. So you may as well wait and know how many points you get total by the end of the event and then get the ship. And I got kicked from the server. Okay. We are back, and we need to talk about these missions. So, depending on how dedicated you are to playing, you will be able to get all of this done, okay? There's not anything that bad, and you can do these all sequentially, right? So, we don't actually have to finish everything in this at once, but maybe you won't. Maybe you won't. I do think that the mission chains here at the end of number 5 is the most difficult, or close to the most difficult. 170,000 commander XP is a lot. I mean, if you don't have a premium account and any sort of even green boosters, it's going to be challenging. 36 million potential damage could be challenging as well. However, I mean, you don't necessarily need to finish all of these. If it remains at 1 of 4, like you only need to complete 4 of these to move on to the next one, there's some easier missions back here, right? 7 battles, 10 Citadel hits. It's not so bad. In fact, maybe week 6 is easier than week 5. Week 7 as well. Not too bad. 10 million credits, not too bad. 40 in caps, these kinds of things aren't so bad. So it's very likely you'll get even more than the around 25,000 that I am estimating. But I'm trying to be a little bit conservative here on how likely it is that you get all of these. I can't just do the calculations based on you completing the entire event guaranteed, right? So with those tokens in mind, we have the Wargaming given chart, which Wargaming, I really appreciate that you laid out this event in such a clear way to the player base. Absolutely love this. I was not expecting this. Makes my job a million times easier trying to convey this information to the audience. Very, very nice. And you'll see I've added a lot. In fact, a lot of this legwork was already done by people over on Reddit, which I really appreciate. This will be linked in the description down below, but here's where Wargaming lays everything out. And then in the comments down here, we have some people that actually went through and did a lot of this work for me in calculating all this out. So big shout outs. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And even got some of these ratios for us. So this is what I am using to calculate out the coal cost, especially if we use some tokens that we can get reasonably. I think it's reasonable to expect people to get some of the tokens, maybe not all of them. How much is it going to cost to finish off some of these? And notice the difference here. There's actually a change in the token to coal ratios. So at the Petro and the Schlieffen, it's like 17.5 or a little bit more. But we see here for the Lauria clone, it's 16.6 about for the conversion ratio. It's a little bit different for each one. And at the bottom here with the Z52 here, you're actually converting with only getting around 25,000 tokens. You're converting some here and some here. So very strange that the coal is not a direct standardized ratio. It changes the whole time. Very, very weird. So know that going in. And that's where I am trying to calculate this out. Here in the white text, we have the full coal price. This is just like what you saw that was already pre-calculated for us. Again, big shout outs. Thank you guys. In green though is some of my extra calculations here. So what is a reasonable grind? I think most people should be able to get to that stage 5. Probably more, in fact. But again, I'm going on the conservative route. That gets us 23,250 tokens. And then we get the 1,500 from the gift and the 200 in free bundles. That, again, is over here. I think it's pretty reasonable that you guys should get that one. Both of those, in fact. So that gets us just shy of 25,000 tokens, which I think is quite reasonable. Again, these calculations are a bit of an approximation here. But with that in mind, we take off some of the cost of the full 39,000 tokens here. If you, say, wanted to get the Marco Polo and Verity clones, that gets us to 241,000 coal to finish this one out. Again, only if you get that 25,000 tokens. If we go down to the next one, you get completely this entire thing with the leftover tokens. 6,450 leftover tokens. You can easily get this one. Again, 18,500. That one's not so bad. Going up to Petro here, maybe one of the better value ones, as it's only 81,000 coal or thereabouts. Again, these are approximate numbers. If you're able to get that 25,000 tokens, or just shy of 25,000 tokens. Here we have Neptune, Delaware, Grom, and this one is a little more expensive again, so 241,000 coal after getting 25,000 tokens. Down here, we see the Furutaka, North Carolina, Navarin, Z52 bundle, also quite expensive, but 292,000 coal after seeing all of those tokens used. That's at 24,950. Schlieffen in the 141,000 coal range after using 25,000 tokens. And of course, Lauria, 283k. So 280 to 300,000 coal to get yourself a Lauria and a Ptrpvlsk, right? There's more than just one premium here, but let's be honest, most people are looking for Lauria or Schlieffen or Z52 Navarin or Neptune Delaware or Petro, Verity Marco Polo, right? We're looking at the final result here, okay? So that's why I'm saying generally it's going to cost you this much for that final ship, because most people are going after that final ship. I think that is pretty obvious. 283,000 coal for a steel tier 10. I think that's pretty good. For those of you that don't have a lot of steel grinding out in clan battles, that kind of thing, this is very, very interesting. If you got some coal lying around, consider that right now we have a salvage going on. I mean, you're not even getting Nari and Kelowna for that level of coal input. The coal here is, I mean, it's very, very expensive on the coal to actually get a lot of these ships in the salvage. So it's kind of interesting that you can use the coal to top us up in the Nian's Paradox event. Yeah, it's not necessarily new ships, but it's getting you to some very, very powerful ships. Lauria is very, very good. Battlecruiser Dispersion here with 457 mil sap. I think another great example of a ship you would be interested in, of course, is the von Zuckerhoff here. This is Schlieffen. The draw here, of course, is that with a premium or special ship status, because you're not getting the premium income with tier 10s, that's the only difference. The draw here is we can just swap Lucians over completely for free. No more spending doubloons or elite commander XP. You just swap them in. That's the draw, of course. And I think that is a fair I mean, the camo is kind of hilarious. Here's the horn also. You know, if you're into that, you always have the option to turn this additional content stuff off over here if you're wondering and you don't want to see that kind of thing in game. I don't think the Z52 is much of a draw. We played that recently. I don't see that as much of a draw, but maybe you do. Maybe you do. That bundle also includes Navarin, for example, so maybe that adds on to you that you want to get Navarin. This is a pretty fun brawler. Secondary battleship. Very exposed citadel, but pretty solid secondaries at your tier. Petro, of course, another great example. I would say in the top 3 is Petro, Lauria, and Schlieffen. Lauria, of course, just because it's steel, but Schlieffen and Petro because there's some extremely powerful commanders here that are so valuable on every single ship in their tech tree that constantly moving them anytime you want to play some of these ships, it adds up in cost. So having these premium or special ships in the case of tier 10s, allowing you to swap the commanders over for free, very valuable. I also want to mention that with Petro and these other ships that do have a legendary mod, yes, we actually can get the legendary mod for this premium or special ship version of Petro. So it's not separate like we would have seen with like the ARP Yamato, for example. That was a separate legendary mod, which is very weird, but we don't have to worry about that here, right? ARP main battery system, right? Where regular Yamato is just main battery director. So very strange that that one was different, but we don't have to worry about that in this event. Great. So not too bad on the costs, a little bit, in fact, a lot more than I was expecting, which we'll get into in a second, but not too bad. And the ability to earn some pretty rare ships like Lauria for free or for a small input of coal, which I would still consider free because coal you earn just by playing the game. Unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of you have drained your coal resources on the Surcouf Salvage event. Didn't really know that this was going to be a situation where you would likely need to top up with coal to actually finish a lot of these. We'll see how difficult it is with these missions. Maybe, again, maybe it is a lot easier than I am thinking. The ability to sequentially go through these missions where you don't have to go one by one is a big deal here. Weird, though, that some of the game modes are missing here. Yeah, Unbreakable Front, Asymmetric, only for certain mission types here. In fact, it's only for the first one, it looks like, for a lot of these stages. Yeah. Oh, here we go. There's a couple. There's a couple through there, but strange wargaming. Very strange. You input these new modes into the game, and then you don't let people grind their missions. That feels bad. Please maybe change that. I think that would be a really, really helpful addition to this event. Again, I just want to remind you that these tokens don't carry over between these different factions or between these individual parties within a faction. So it's really, really not a good idea to just input the tokens just right away here. I would highly suggest you just sit on the tokens that you do have until you know what ship you can afford at the end. Maybe you didn't get enough tokens to get all the way to some of the best ships in the Lauria, for example. But maybe you did get enough tokens to go for something like Petro. That'd be kind of a cool option, as long as you didn't input your tokens early on in this event. Holding on to your tokens is a much, much better way of going about this event. Now here it says, depending on your activity, effort, and how you allocate lunar tokens, you can get up to 4 ships, including 1 tier 10, or up to 5 non-tier 10 ships for free. It's a very, very crucial line when dealing with expectations with this event. Now I really need to preface this before I play this clip for you. The context here is this was a month ago when the dev blog for the Lunar New Year event was launching. Okay, so this is a fresh dev blog. These guys are new. Don't be too hard on them. This is early on in them actually streaming and giving these devlog. A couple hours into the stream too. It can be challenging to manage chat and that. But this set some expectations very, very high for me when it came to the free-to-play nature of this new Lunar New Year event. Take a listen.
Realistically, unless you're winning first place on the leaderboard every time, you're probably not going to get the full 45,000. But in general, to get like a tier 10, you need about 15k lunar tokens. To get a tier 7, you need about 10k. So there's a lot of opportunities to get the ships you want. I think we broke it down here. So if you just want to get 5 ships, like get the most ships possible, you can get 5 of them, but they won't be tier 10. If you do want to get a tier 10 in there, you can get about 4. So from this event, free to play, you can get 5 to 4 ships if you're a really hardcore player. But if you're just a super casual person, you're definitely going to get a ship for free as well.
So that's just not how this event is. Unfortunately, whether this is just kind of a slip up or maybe Wargaming changed things. In fact, I'm thinking that might be the case here. Because also released in that same dev blog they were going over, they released what was in these new premium containers. This is how we knew where a lot of these ships were going to be, as well as the new content being locked in these Nian's treasure containers. If we look here, these containers contain blue boosters, a bunch of blue boosters. But if we're to go back to that very dev blog that they were going over a month ago, it talks about having epic expendable economic bonuses in this Nian's Treasure second level premium container. So it seems like something has changed since this dev blog. And I suspect that maybe more than just the type of economic bonuses was changed out of that dev blog. Perhaps the actual cost of some of these ships was changed. 30,000 for Lauria, that's the tier 10. We have 21,000 for Schlieffen. This isn't even including the sequential bundle nature of this. Just the individual ship in itself here. 30,000, 21,000. Z52 around 15.5. Petro 17.5. It's close, but even still not 15,000. So I'm not sure where that number exactly came from. So please don't be too hard on the community managers here. It's likely not their fault. Unfortunately, it looks like something got changed from that dev blog, which of course Wargaming are completely allowed to do. It's a development blog. It's a work in progress. And I would hate to have them stop communicating these things just because we get all mad about one little thing being changed in an event like this, and that they no longer show these dev blogs. The community managers feel they can no longer get in front of the community and talk about how things are going. I would hate for that to happen, okay? Please don't go attack these guys, please. But just know, my expectations were set based on that 15k for a tier 10 figure. And so for me, it is quite disappointing that you can barely sneak through into one of these tier 10s, let alone achieve a few of them for free. And maybe that's not fair to Wargaming, maybe that's thinking they're too generous, but let's remember the last 6 months or so up to Christmas 2025, they gave away 32,000 doubloons up to, which you could have used on a bunch of dockyards like Laffy, as well as Lucian B, as well as Roussillon, to get those dockyards for free just by playing the game. They gave away something like Kushiro. They gave away some tier 10s or tier 8s, depending on how long you had played at the anniversary update. They had actually given away a San Diego. They had given away a new premium Bridgeport, which was really interesting. Missouri was available for purchase at a discount doubloon price if you finished that San Diego event. And at that whole time, you were earning doubloons for free. It was possible to actually get Missouri completely for free just a few months ago. So for this drastic of a change, nested crates, if you want to get these new ships, in Yimeng and Messina, and the new carrier as well. Still not going to try and pronounce it. Nested containers, thousands of dollars to guarantee these ships. Maybe you missed out on Schroder. Maybe you missed out on Atlantico. Maybe you missed out on grinding Taihang completely for free last Lunar New Year. These things are all very expensive now. And the only saving grace I saw for this update was that they're going to give away some clone ships for free to people. And they still are, technically. Technically, they still are. But unfortunately, it's not multiple of these. It is pick one and stay there. And probably wait until the very end of the event to know how many tokens you have to spend and how much coal you have available to you to top up and maybe get yourself something like Lauria. This is still an absolutely great event, okay? I still think this is an awesome event, but expectations were set a lot higher, and in the context of a bunch of other events that have been released recently and their costs being way higher and way more predatory compared to the last 6 months of 2025, I am quite disappointed, Wargaming. Even though I still think this is a great event overall, it is copy-pasted content at a very steep grind. It's possible, but it's still going to be very difficult. And there is not a lot of room to get multiple of these types of parties, I guess they're calling them. You only can really get one. Okay, that probably took a little longer than I wanted to, but I spent like 3 hours on stream not playing the game, just trying to go over this to figure out the details here. I think it's a great event. But please, it's just not good enough in the context of these gambling loot boxes Wargaming. Seriously, that is not okay. We need an Admiral bundle at least for the new content you're delivering here. And as we move on, please don't go harass the community managers over one misstep, like a couple hours into a stream on some of their first live streams as community managers. Please, that's not cool. That is not okay. Moving on, we have an event pass here for the Lunar New Year, and you're going to get a Mayoko clone, Eastern Dragon. Not as exciting, but there is some steel and coal available here. Not super exciting. I suppose there is a permanent camo here that you could also get for tier 10s. This one has some 3D modeling to it. And based on 4 tier 10, I'm assuming you can mount it to a bunch of different tier 10s. A new game mode is here with Unbreakable Front. This is unfortunately not available for most of those missions to grind out. Really not sure what they're thinking with there, but this is like Unbreakable Line, but brings new mechanics to intensify those battles. So this is the respawning mode with missiles. Fortunately, no missiles! Yay! Please don't ever bring missiles to this game, Wargaming. Please. That is also not alright. Allowing you to select respawns, I think, is pretty neat. Could allow for some very interesting gameplay opportunities. It's all about capturing a main area, of course, too. And you got some different consumables exclusive to this game mode as well. So could be some interesting opportunities to play here. It's going to be a 7v7 tier 8 to tier 10 cruiser battleship destroyer. Lovely, no carrier sub. Love to see it. Divisions up to 7 players are allowed, which sounds absolutely hilarious. So you're having a drink with the boys and div up to 7. Good casual fun to be had here. Really unfortunate that you can't grind out all those missions in this mode. Wow, this would be beautiful. Oh man, it'd be such a great chill way to grind through the missions. Of course, we also have the salvage for Surcouf still going on. We've already looked at a lot of the ships in this event. And Kelowna is really the best value to get out of here. But at this point, if you haven't spent your coal, maybe it's a good idea to wait and see how many tokens you actually have at the end of this Nian's treasure event. Perhaps then you will want to use your coal instead of Kelowna to complete your way to that Lauria. Kelowna, though, for just shy of 200,000 coal seems pretty good to me. Naria, Zarya S seem way too expensive for what they are. There's some operations improvements. I don't play a lot of operations, but looks like they've added some of the operations from In the Name of Tomorrow also, so a little bit of new content, or at least returning content there for you to play with. And we got some brawls with some crazy modifiers here. The first brawl, non-torpedo armament is close to ineffective. So you remember the old space battles where it was a bunch of torp destroyers with like insane torp speed and insane ship maneuverability? I think they're bringing that back, that concept, except not in the space battle. Man, I miss those old April Fool's events, guys. Like the kitty duck, like the plastic rubber ducks in the pool, the space battles. It was so fun. I hope they bring that kind of thing back. I miss it. I really do. Halloween events too. Man, when was the last time we got a Halloween, let alone a new Halloween event? We didn't even get a Halloween event last year. Some of that fun, I feel like, is missing from the game, Wargaming. Some of those goofy, wacky events. Brawl 2 has a lifesteal mechanic, which could be pretty fun to mess around with. And Brawl 3 doesn't really have anything, so unfortunate there. But Brawl 1 and 2 sound pretty funny. Yes, and we have a couple more new ships coming. Can't play them yet for you guys, but Pioneer as well as Châteaurenault? I'm sorry about pronouncing these things. But new updates to the armory here. Pioneer is going to be available for steel. This one is going to have HE, radar, as well as smoke screens. So a pretty potent combo there. And Châteaurenault has the research points tag added to it. So 62,000 research points. This one is going to have all of its torps in the bow, apparently, which sounds hilarious. Also having 20 kilometers of range, but much like Cassard, at 8 kilometers, that damage is going to be cut in half or almost in half. So we'll see how that goes, but interesting, funny YOLO Torp DD could be worth the 62,000 research points. The early access continues. Again, just wait though, please. Early access to these new lines, never worth it for doubloons. Seriously, just wait and then you can get these ships completely for free next update by just grinding through them normally. And really not much else interesting of note to be added outside of the guaranteed drop counter when opening containers in port has been added back. Really good to just show the player how unlikely it is they're getting a drop. The gamble containers. Please stop with that, Wargaming. At least as the only method of obtaining these new ships. It is just not okay that some of the only new ships in this update are only obtainable via nested loot boxes for an absurd price. Again, it's going to be over $1,000 for you to guaranteed get some of these ships. Ridiculous. That is not okay. Absolutely absurd. As well as bringing back dockyards, maybe the best events Wargaming puts on, some of them at least. Bringing back these in the worst monetized way. You go from some of the best monetization events that they do to easily the worst. That's not okay either. That's ridiculous. People feel like they missed out on some of these dockyard ships, and then that FOMO hits. Not okay. Please, just bring these back as normal dockyards. Maybe freshen up the campaigns tab. I'm going to keep banging on this drum because this is a good idea. Just add on. Just add on, right? Extend this over a little bit more. Let me buy into Atlantico. Let me buy into Schroder dockyards. Or maybe more money. Maybe instead of the 3,000 to 8,000 doubloons it is to get into these dockyards when they first come out, maybe a couple years after the dockyard, it shows up in here for whatever the equivalent of $40 to $60 is. And that allows you to buy into the dockyard permanently. It never goes away from here, much like these campaigns, and you can grind through it at your own pace. It costs more, but it never goes away. That, I think, would be the best way to reintroduce a lot of these dockyards. Certainly not bringing them back in gamble-only nested containers. Ridiculous. If you're wondering, by the way, Schroder is hella power crept by the new German cruiser line with the manual secondaries. Atlantico also, I mean, the F key on the new Pan-American battleship line is just better. So these two aren't really even that worthwhile going for, to be honest with you. The tech tree equivalents are just better, in my opinion. But I still probably will go over these two alongside a lot of the other new ships and just the general reskins here. We're going to need to take a look at an updated look at Lauria, of course. I think this skin is actually really cool. So we're probably going to be playing this one, but stats-wise, they are the exact same. And that is going to do it for update 15.1. Not a ton of new content here, specifically because the main event includes copy-paste ships, but I hope you have enough information to get yourself started on this event and generally know how likely it is you can actually accomplish getting one of these new or at least copy-paste ships. Lauria, I think, will be the primary drive for a lot of you, and I hope you can get to it. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.